The new generation Volkswagen Amarok is much more than just a rebadged version of a Ford Ranger, although that would actually be just fine. In fact, this could be a better option than the Ford Ranger, and I'm going to tell you why in this review. Thanks for watching. I hope you're enjoying what you are seeing so far. Please do hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. For more review content, hit the bell icon so you keep up to date with everything I publish, including plenty more ute tests. Let me know if there's any utes you want me to review too. There are 5 different versions available of the Volkswagen Amarok in Australia at launch, and they are all dual cab. They are all 4x4, and that might mean that it excludes you from their buyer profile because basically the price tag is much higher than it used to be. The entry-level version is more than $50,000, so this is not your budget ute, especially not this one. But the entry-level version is called the Core, as the last entry-level version was called as well. And it comes basically in work spec. So you get cloth seats, you get vinyl flooring, you get some stuff that, well, makes it feel a bit special inside. You get a 10-inch touchscreen media system, single zone climate control, and you get side steps as standard as well. And alloy wheels and LED lights too. The next model up from there is the Life version. It costs a fair few $1,000s more, but it does come with extra equipment, including color-coded exterior stuff that will make it look a little bit more appreciable to those who might be buying their vehicle as a dual-purpose ute. You also get twin-turbo diesel engine, carpet flooring on the inside, you get different interior trim, and a bunch of other extras as well that helps justify the extra cost. The step above it is called the Style, and I actually think that the Style grade is the pick of the range. So you've got 2 engine choices, but you also get a bunch of standard equipment for your extra money, including 12-inch screens for the driver and the infotainment screen. Get a bit more safety technology too, just like you do in the model below it. Plus, you also score things like a tub liner, and every version of the Amarok comes with a tow bar as well. There's also matrix LED headlights, you've got a 360-degree surround view camera, and different interior trim too, and it does feel a bit more special, if you ask me. Above it is the Panamericana version. Now, it comes basically equipped to do off-roading. So it's got more hardcore tires, it's got a tub liner, a sports bar, and it does look and feel a bit more rugged. It's also got leather interior trim, but only comes with the V6 engine. And then there's this one here, which is the top-spec Aventura version. Now, it's available with the diesel V6 and a petrol turbo engine as well. So if you are after something that is a bit different, it's not necessarily as powerful as a Ranger Raptor, but it is a pretty interesting petrol option. It's got 21-inch wheels, and it's got a sportier look and feel and a bit more of a sporty intent. And it's probably for someone who's going to spend more of the time on-road than off. If you're looking at a Volkswagen Amarok, there's a good chance you've already considered a Ford Ranger, and you'd be doing the right thing if you have, because it's a fantastic ute. It offers a bunch of different powertrain options and heaps of different spec levels and trim levels. So if you need a single cab ute with a tray and you want it to be really, really good, then a Ford Ranger would be a great choice. But if you're after a dual cab that's really good, a Ford Ranger would be a great choice. Plus, there's the availability of a Raptor version, although wait times for it are exceptionally long, so that might matter to you. Now, the other ute that I reckon you should check out is the Isuzu D-Max. It's a fantastic option for people who maybe aren't as fussed about the interior feeling so special, but it still comes with heaps of equipment and a really strong engine, and it's pretty good value for money. And finally, I reckon you should check out the Mazda BT50 if you haven't already. It looks a bit different to a D-Max, but it shares a lot with the D-Max, and that is no bad thing because it's still very impressive, easy to drive, easy to live with, and pretty nice inside, but maybe not the most special feeling ute, although the BT50 does feel a bit more special than the D-Max. This new ute is bigger than the last one. Surprised? Not really, right? So it's more than 5.3 meters long, but that's still not the biggest in this segment. So it's not necessarily as challenging to drive as some other really big utes, right? So things you need to know: every version comes with side steps. It's got a longer wheelbase as well, and that means that it's also got less overhang at the front, so better off-road capability. I'm going to put some off-road angles on your screen now, but the thing about the departure angle is that you need to know that every version comes with a tow bar as standard, so that does impact your departure angle when you are off-roading. And every version can tow 3.5 tons. Maximum brake towing capacity for all versions is 3.5 tons, which is very impressive. Another thing that's impressive, 350 kilo roof load, and there's an optional tent that you can get through Volkswagen if you want to. All right, let's check out the tub. There's a bit to cover. The Volkswagen Amarok's tray area is still one of the bigger ones in the ute segment. So just like before, you can still fit a pallet between the arches. And in this top spec version, you get an electronic sliding cover. I'm not so sure about those personally because I'm not really sure whether they'll last if you do a lot of outback driving, for example. It could be a bit of an issue with sand getting in there or something like that, but maybe time will tell, who knows. The other thing that Volkswagen's done with this tray area is improve the positioning and the number of tie down points. So they're now 6 tie down points instead of 4 in the last one, and apparently they're easier to get to. You can even get to the ones under the roller cover, which in some other utes that have this electric roller cover, they basically cover it up, and so you can't secure anything at the front of the tray. But the thing is, I still think that it's one of the better trays in the segment, and there are different options across the different grades for you to choose from. If you buy the entry-level one, you don't get any sort of covering in the tray area, but if you buy one of the higher spec versions, you get either a spray-in or a plastic liner like this one. So it really depends what you need, and you're gonna have to check the spec sheet to decide which is right for you. The interior of the new generation Amarok is a massive step forward compared to the last generation version, although it does feel a little bit familiar if you've sat in a Ford Ranger. Obviously that's because there are some common elements with the Ford Ranger, including the shifter, which I hate. I think it's really annoying to get your head around because you actually press a button at the front of the shifter rather than on the side. There's a manual controller on the side, so you might actually make a mistake and press the wrong button if you aren't used to that shifter, but you do get used to it after some time in the car. The door handle, so the actual handle that you use to open the door, is the same, so that also takes a little bit of getting used to. But otherwise, there is a bit of a different look and feel to the cabin because of the way that the design has been carried out in here. And I like the design in here. I think it's a bit more let's say European looking and feeling, and I think that that is what they were trying to achieve with this car, even though it was designed in Australia with Australian input, which is kind of interesting. So when it comes to what makes it look and feel different, there's different design elements. You've got these outlet surrounds for the vents, and that just ties together nicely. I really like that they've got, on some grades, a fake leather trim finish on top of the dashboard. Just ups the ambience a little bit. It runs onto the doors as well. So if you're the sort of person who rests your arm up there a lot, you're going to like that. Now, in terms of storage, it's pretty good too. So you've got a twin glove box, one up the top there, one down there, and that's pretty nice. There's a little storage tray on top of the dash as well. You've got big cup holders between the seats, a center console covered section here as well, and a storage section in front of the shifter too, with wireless phone charging in every single grade, which is nice. And if you option it, because you get a standard tow bar in every single Amarok, you can get a little electronic brake controller toggle switch here, which is only 500 bucks. And I think that's an absolute bargain, and credit to Volkswagen for making that such a cheap option. There's also bottle holders in the doors, and obviously you've got this big touchscreen media system in the middle. The controls, yes, it does have some physical controls, including a volume button and hard buttons that you can select to actually go through menus on the screen. However, it isn't as simple as it could be, and I actually find it a little bit confusing when you're trying to adjust things like the bass and treble of the sound system. You might actually find that it's a bit more distracting than it probably should be, and that's because there's menus upon menus upon menus. But you do get used to it, and maybe just make sure you do that sort of stuff when you're not driving. That's a nice tip. Now, this spec has the dark headliner, and there's a couple of versions that have it too. I don't love dark headliners. I think it makes it feel a bit hemmed in, and I drove a version that didn't have it, and it felt a lot more airy and, to me, a bit more livable too. Now this version is the top spec one, so it gets the leather trimmed seats, they're heated as well, and it feels pretty plush up front. So let's check out the back seat and see if it lives up to that. Backseat space in the Amarok is improved over the last generation version, but it's still not the most roomy backseat experience if you are an adult like me. I am an adult, 182 centimeters and 6 foot tall. This seat is set for my driving position. As you can see, my knees are just almost rubbing up against the seat back in front of me. So if you do always have adults in the back row, that might be something you want to consider. Or if your kids are just really big, it could be something that might be a bit of a deal breaker. So the back seat comfort is pretty good. It's a reasonably flat but still comfortable bench seat, and the backrest has some nice sculpting to it as well. So you do actually sort of sit in the seat rather than on it, which is a nice change from the last generation model. And it's a lot wider as well, so there's a bit more thigh support if you are sitting in the back. One thing that I don't love is that even in this top spec one, which is 80 grand, you don't get the same sort of fake leather trim on the door toppers. So that might be a bit uncomfortable on your elbows, but you do get padded elbow rests on the doors anyway. Now, when it comes to other convenience features back here, you've got a pair of directional air vents. There's a 12-volt port, but no USB ports and no power ports. Some other utes do have like a power point, so you can plug a laptop or a device or some sort of power tool into if you need to, but this ute doesn't come with that. And again, no USB ports, just seems a bit backwards in 2023. But there are some other nice conveniences, such as these multi-pocket seats. So you've got a couple of pockets at the top and then a pocket down the bottom, which does make for better storage for like loose items, phones, wallets, keys, that sort of thing. It's nice to have. And if you have kids, they'll always want to have a toy or a drink or some snacks or something in there, which is nice to know. Now, speaking of kids, there are ISOFIX points in the window seats and 2 top tether points. If you pull down the seat back, you will see that there are individual top tether points, unlike some of the other utes out there, which have just 1 top tether point, and you can never really feel like you're getting as much purchase on your top tether strap if that matters to you, if you've got kids in seats like I do. I should also mention that there are bottle holders in the doors, and there's a flip down center armrest. Just like the Ranger, it's really quite difficult to get it down. Anyway, there it is, a couple of cup holders in there and an armrest. So I think that it's a pretty good backseat experience, but maybe not the best. There's a few options when it comes to powertrains for the new generation Amarok, including the entry-level version, which is called the TDI 405. That indicates that it's got 405 Newton meters of torque from the 2-litre turbo diesel engine. It's a single turbo diesel with the choice of 6-speed manual or 6-speed automatic, and it's 4-wheel drive, selectable 4-wheel drive with a standard rear diff lock. Above that is the more powerful and more torquey twin turbo diesel engine. The outputs you'll see on your screen now are familiar if you know that that engine comes from the Ford Ranger as well. And it does come with the same 10-speed automatic transmission and 4-wheel drive too. And then there's this one here, the V6 diesel. Now, it is a fantastic engine, but it's not a Volkswagen TDI engine, despite the fact that they call it a TDI 600, which indicates how many Newton meters of torque it's got. Again, 10-speed auto and 4-wheel drive, but this time it's permanent 4-wheel drive instead. And then there's the TSI 452, which is a 2.3-litre petrol turbo engine. Plenty of power. In fact, the most power of any vehicle that can tow 3.5 tons, according to Volkswagen. And again, with a 10-speed auto and permanent 4-wheel drive. Which one would you pick? Right now, I'm in the top-spec Aventura with the 2.3-litre turbo-petrol engine, and it's kind of a weird sensation to be driving a vehicle that you know is super-duper capable of going off-road, but also towing 3.5 tons, that also has a petrol engine, and it's really, really quiet. So that's a common theme across the entire Amarok range though, that they all are pretty quiet whether you choose diesel or not. Well, in the versions that I've driven, I haven't driven the entry-level version with that single turbo diesel engine, but by what I've seen so far, this is a pretty quiet and refined example of ute life. The thing about the version of the Amarok with this petrol engine though is that it just feels a bit more light and lively. You know, diesel engines have this tendency to feel like they're, well, working This engine just sort of feels like it's up for the task and eager, which is kind of cool. However, I don't think it's going to be for everyone at 80 grand. I would say that the bi-turbo engine, which is the same sort of engine you'll find in a Ranger, is fantastic. It's really, really well suited to this application. It's got plenty of power and torque. And yes, the 10-speed automatic will be busy. It will shift gears a lot, but it's getting the best out of the engine. So what about the big boy, the V6 diesel? Well, it's good, there's no doubt about that. It's gonna be better suited, I think, to people who will be using the capability of those 600 Newton meters of torque. So if you are planning to do a lot of towing, or if you know that you're gonna have a load in the back a lot, then it might be a better ute for you. However, for me, I think that the sweet spot is the bi-turbo. Volkswagen says that it tuned the Amarok to feel more like a Volkswagen to drive than it would have otherwise. And look, I've driven heaps of Volkswagens and I've driven the Ford Ranger. This feels different to me. It feels like it does have a different kind of reactiveness to the steering, and it also has a different ride characteristic too. There is different suspension in the top grades. They've got monotube front dampers, which seems to make things just ride a little bit more controlled, but also the handling is improved as a result of that. It does handle and ride better than the last generation version, I would think. Now, I haven't tested it with a load. I'm just at the launch of this vehicle, so I haven't really put it through its paces as a ute, but as a lifestyle vehicle, it's ticking plenty of boxes. The ride comfort is good. It is firm, but it is controlled. So it does make you feel like it has good confidence inspiring handling. And for a lot of ute buyers, maybe you're a first time ute buyer, that could be really important to you. Because so many other utes, like the Hilux, hit the link at the top of your screen and watch my review of that vehicle, they can feel really harsh and firm and hard riding. Whereas this vehicle, with nothing in the back, feels perfectly livable. One thing I'll just say about this version with the 21-inch wheels is that the ride comfort is actually exceptional. I drove the versions with 18s before and they were good, but this is blowing my mind how good this is, considering it's got such big wheels with such low profile tires. I also drove that Panamericana version, which has 18s and more off-road focused tires, and there was a bit of I guess, compromise when it comes to the grip. So it didn't feel as grippy in corners, and also didn't have as much rear end grip when the surface was damp. So just keep that in mind. I reckon this is going to tick the box for heaps of buyers for heaps of different reasons, and there are a bunch of different options to choose too. So well done, Volkswagen, and good on you, Ford. So that covers off the on-road drive experience, but hit the link at the top of your screen if you want to see what it's like to go off-road in this new Amarok. If you're wondering what the fuel consumption is like for each of the different grades of the Amarok, you'll see on your screen now the entry-level version's official combined cycle fuel consumption figures. Now that's what you should be able to achieve across a mix of driving. I didn't get to drive those versions today, so yeah, I can't really give you a real-world figure, but I can for the rest of the engines available. So the next step up from there is the bi-turbo diesel version. 7.2 litres per 100 k's is the official combined figure for that one, and you'll see on your screen now what I achieved on the launch drive. Unsurprisingly, the diesel V6 uses a little bit more fuel officially. You'll see the official number on your screen now, and what I saw on this launch drive on your screen now as well. I thought that was pretty good. Although it wasn't loaded, we weren't towing, it was just country road driving pretty much, so you can make up your own mind. You'll see on your screen now the official combined figure for this turbo-petrol version, 9.9 litres per 100 k's. You'll be doing very well to achieve that. You'll see what I saw in this real world test, which was basically just country driving. Not fantastic, but then again, I'm not surprised. The Volkswagen Amarok has scored a maximum 5-star ANCAP safety rating based on 2022 testing, so it's got all the technology that you would expect, at least in most of the grades. So The entry-level version comes with autonomous emergency braking with lane keeping assistance and adaptive cruise control, but you don't get blind spot monitoring or rear cross traffic alert in that version. You do get a rear view camera and rear parking sensors though. If you step up to the next model up, you do get blind spot monitoring, which is something that I think you should get as standard across the entire range, but obviously that's not the case with the Amarok. So would you choose the version that doesn't have blind spot monitoring at more than 50 grand? I don't think I would. Volkswagen offers a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty, and that includes the Amarok range. Now, if you're wondering about servicing, the brand has said that it's a real focus this time around to ensure that servicing is affordable and the total cost of ownership for commercial vehicle buyers makes sense. So you can choose between 5 years of cap price servicing, and you'll see the average price on your screen now, or if you want, you can prepay your servicing and it'll be $1,800 for 5 years, which is very affordable for a European branded ute, I reckon. Service intervals are 12 months and 15,000 Ks, which is much better than if you own a Hilux and it requires servicing every 6 months and 10,000 Ks. Oh, roadside assist, you get that too. The new generation Amarok is an improvement on the last one, as you would expect. It's as good as a Ford Ranger, and it offers some different interior and exterior alternative options, which make it a pretty compelling option for buyers who are looking to spend this sort of money on a ute. Now, I don't think you need to spend this kind of money on a ute. 80 grand is a lot, but I think that the style grade at about $66,000 to $70,000 ticks a lot of boxes for a lot of buyers. Tell me what you think in the comments section below, and if you haven't already, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.